With me here in Davos is Michael Granoff. He's founder and CEO at Pomona Capital, a $8 billion assets under management firm. Majority interests in the US, but exposed to India as well. Pomona picks up stakes in private equity firms and helps and invests in that way. Michael, thank you very much for your time. Great to have you with us here.
Nice to be here with you.
I want to start by asking you about what's happening right now in the global financial landscape. Last 20 days completely changed, right? I mean, the conversation here in Davos, the theme is the fourth industrial revolution. It's about digital, but I think a lot of the cream of the global financial elite, which is going to be here, is going to be worried about their wealth a little bit, maybe?
Well, I think that when you think about revolutions, if it's really true that it's the fourth industrial revolution, revolutions create fear in terms of people being concerned about the effect of them, and they create a sense of hope that things will be better. And so right now we're in the throes of that, and I think if you look at what's happened in the last few weeks, certainly people's fears about things are being borne out. It was a very difficult beginning to the year. Yeah. People are concerned about economic factors, they're concerned about geopolitical factors, and trying to think about how that's going to affect them, whether they are government leaders, business leaders, non-governmental organization leaders, and I think that's the kind of balance of questions that is animating people here in Davos this year.
Will 2016 be better than 2015, or will it be worse, both from a global economy perspective and financial market perspective?
Well, we sit here in the middle of January, and so we've got 11 and a half months to go, and it's hard to have a crystal ball. Right. Certainly this year has started in a much more volatile way than last year started. Right. And so that certainly signals concern that people should have. It's hard to tell how it will end up in that way, and I think in order for it to end up in a better place, I think one of the themes of Davos and the importance of Davos is actually that government leaders and business leaders are going to need to work together to think about these problems and to try to figure out ways to better deal with them. And if they can do that, then hopefully things will settle down, economic growth will pick back up, and things will resume an upward path. If they don't, you can see a situation that remains difficult.
You are very familiar with India. You've got investments in India. What's your sense about what's going on as far as the Indian economy is concerned? Are you happy with the progress?
Well, again, I'm no expert on the Indian economy, but I visit India often. We have investments in India, and I've been lucky enough to meet Mr. Modi a couple of times when he came to the United States. And my impression is that India is making good efforts on structural reform, good efforts on trying to build economic growth. But as I was telling you earlier, the English-American phrase is that it's hard to move an aircraft carrier, to turn an aircraft carrier. This is a big country, lots of issues, lots of people, and you can't just turn it so quickly. But is it beginning to turn? Does it feel like it's beginning to turn? Certainly to me, it feels like it's beginning to turn in a good direction.
Mm-hmm. So directionally good, but maybe slower than what most people thought. I guess expectations are pretty high, right? Or were pretty high.
Expectations are always high, right? Political people, when they run for office, want to convince people that they're going to make things a lot better quickly.
Yes.
Well, it turns out that it's not so easy to do that, and certainly it's not easy to do that quickly. Mm-hmm. But I do think it's important, for having worked in our government as well as in business, to demonstrate success. That is, you need to demonstrate to people that what you're doing is having an effect. Not that it's solving the problem, but that it's moving down that road. And if people feel as if you're affecting their problems in that way, they want to give you the time to execute your plan. And if they don't feel that, then they want another change. And my sense is that if the Indian people begin to feel that things are changing for the better, they will understand that these problems are not small, they didn't happen overnight, and so they're not going to be solved overnight either.
Mm-hmm. India, from a global finance perspective, is still a small market in terms of the FDI it attracts, or the foreign portfolio flows it attracts, etc. But it is one of the fastest growing large economies in the world. For global finance capital, is India on the radar in terms of investing?
I think India is definitely on the radar. Obviously, it's a big country, big economy, big potential growth. You're right. Today, it's a small portion. If you looked at private equity capital overall, the United States accounts for probably 2/3. Europe accounts for another 20-something%, and the whole rest of the world, not just India, is that percentage. But that percentage will probably increase over time. and the dynamic of how it will increase will be a result of people's experiences. And so if people's experiences investing in India are positive, they'll want to invest more. And if people's experiences are not so positive, then they won't be interested in investing more. And one of the reasons why a lot of these structural reforms, I think, are important is that it can create a foundation where investors will feel comfortable coming and investing, and as a result will have more good experiences, and therefore will want to invest more capital.
What kind of sectors, industries, businesses are you most optimistic about as far as India is concerned, since you are familiar with the business landscape?
You know, the funds that we're invested in are mostly in the growth capital area. That is, they're not in the buyout area, they're not in the early stage venture capital area, they're in the growth area of consumer products, growth area of technology, those kinds of things. Some of that is a function of the risk we're comfortable taking. That is, we are more comfortable where businesses are already beginning and you can see the results as opposed to startups. But also, you want to position yourself where India is strongest, and you'd say India's strongest potential is probably in that growth area.
Right. So essentially consumer and technology, essentially
Those are two.
consumer-facing businesses, not infrastructure or sectors which depend on, the government moving in the right direction.
Yeah,
but essentially serving the consumer.
I think that's probably right more broadly. It does depend on the government and the environment that it creates and foundation it creates in that way, but probably not projects that, let's say, the government is financing. I don't think that's an area that we know enough about in that way.
Michael, thank you very much for your time. It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Glad to do it. Thanks so much.
Thank you.